The brave little tailor. One summer's morning, a little tailor was sitting on his table by the window. He was in good spirits, and he sewed happily away, making a jacket, pushing his needle and thread through the cloth very quickly. Then came a peasant woman down the street who had come from her farm in the country, crying out, "Good jams and jellies for sale! Good jams and jellies! Cheap!" Well, this sounded pleasant in the tailor's ears. He stretched his delicate head out of the window and called, "Come up here, dear woman, I will buy your goods." The woman came up the 3 steps to the tailor with her heavy basket, and he made her unpack all the pots of jam for him. He inspected each one, lifted it up, put his nose to it, and at length said, "The jam seems to be good, so weigh me out 4 ounces, dear woman, and if it is 1/4 of a pound, that is of no consequence." Well, 4 ounces is the same as 1/4 of a pound, so he was making a little joke. But the woman didn't laugh, because she had hoped to sell more of her goods. She gave him what he desired, but went away quite angry and grumbling. "Now this jam shall be blessed by God," said the little tailor, "and it will give me health and strength." So he brought the bread out of the cupboard, cut himself a piece right across the loaf, and spread the jam over it. "This won't taste bitter," said he, "but I will finish the jacket before I take a bite." He laid the bread next to him, sewed on, and in his joy made bigger and bigger stitches. In the meantime, the smell of the sweet jam rose to where the flies were setting in great numbers, and they were attracted and descended on it in hosts and bunches. "Hey, who invited you?" said the little tailor, and waved the unbidden, unwelcome guests away. The flies, however, who understood no human words, would not be turned away, but came back again in ever-increasing companies. The little tailor at last lost all patience, and pulled a piece of cloth from the hole under his work table and said, "Wait, and I will give it to you." Then he slammed the cloth mercilessly on them. When he drew it away and counted, there lay before him no fewer than 7, dead, and with legs stretched out. "Are you a fellow of that sort?" he said to himself, and could not help admiring his own bravery. "The whole town shall know of this." And the little tailor hastened and hurried to cut himself a sash to wear, stitched it, and embroidered on it in large letters, 7 at one stroke. "Not just the town," he continued, "the whole world shall hear of it." And his heart wagged with joy, quick as a lamb's tail. The sailor put on the sash and resolved to go forth into the world, because he thought his workshop was too small for his valor and courage. Before he went away, he sought about in the house to look and see if there was anything which he could take with him. However, he found nothing but an old cheese, and that he put in his pocket. In front of the door he observed a bird which had caught itself in the thicket. It had to go into his pocket with the cheese. Now he took to the road boldly and bravely, and as he was light and nimble, he felt no fatigue and wasn't a bit tired. The road led him up a mountain, and when he had reached the highest point of it, there sat a powerful giant looking peacefully about him. The little tailor went bravely up, spoke to him, and said, "Good day, friend. So you are sitting there overlooking the wide-spread world. I am just on my way thither and want to try my luck. Have you any inclination or desire to go with me?" The giant looked contemptuously at the tailor and said, "You ragamuffin, you miserable creature." "Oh, indeed?" answered the little tailor, and unbuttoned his coat and showed the giant his sash. "There may you read what kind of man I am." The giant read, 7 at one stroke, and he thought that had meant several men, not 7 flies whom the tailor had killed, and began to feel a little respect for the tiny fellow. Nevertheless, the giant wished to try him first, and took a big stone in his hand and squeezed it together so that water dropped out of it. "Do that likewise," said the giant. "Do the same thing if you're strong enough." "Is that all?" said the tailor. "That is child's play for me." And the tailor put his hand into his pocket, brought out the soft cheese and pressed it and squeezed it until the liquid ran out of it. "Well," said the tailor, "that was a little better than what you did, wasn't it?" The giant did not know what to say, and he could not believe it of the little man. Then the giant picked up a stone and threw it so high that the eye could scarcely follow it. "Now, you little bitty mite of a man, do that likewise." "Well thrown," said the tailor, "but after all the stone came down to earth again. I will throw you one which shall never come back at all." And he put his hand into his pocket, took out the bird, and threw it into the air. The bird, delighted with its liberty, rose up high, flew away, and did not come back. "How does that toss please you, friend?" asked the tailor. "You can certainly throw," said the giant. "But now we will see if you are able to carry anything properly." He took the little tailor to a huge oak tree which lay there, felled on the ground, and said, "If you are strong enough, help me to carry the tree out of the forest." "I am ready and raring to go," answered the little man. "You take the trunk on your shoulders, that's not very big around, and I will raise up all the branches and twigs. After all, they are the biggest and heaviest." The giant took the trunk on his shoulder, but the tailor seated himself on a branch, and the giant, who could not look backward, had to carry away the whole tree, and the little tailor in the bargain. The tailor, sitting behind, was quite merry and happy, and whistled a song, as if carrying the tree were child's play. The giant, after he had dragged the heavy burden part of the way, could go no further, and he cried out, "Hark you! Listen! I shall have to let the tree fall." The tailor sprang nimbly down, seized the tree with both arms as if he had been carrying it, and said to the giant, "You are such a great big fellow, and yet cannot even carry a tree." Well, they went on together, and as they passed a cherry tree, the giant laid hold of the top of the tree where the ripest fruit was hanging, bent it down, gave it to the tailor's hand, and bade him eat. But the little tailor was much too weak to hold the tree, and when the giant let it go, it sprang back again, and the tailor was tossed into the air with it. When he had fallen down again without injury, the giant said, "What is this? Have you not enough strength to hold a weak twig?" "There is no lack of strength," answered the little tailor. "Do you think that could be anything to a man who has struck down 7 at one blow? I leapt over the tree because the huntsmen are shooting down there in the thicket and bushes. Jump as I did, if you can." The giant made the attempt, but he could not get over the tree, and remained hanging in the branches, so that in this also the tailor kept the upper hand. The giant said, "If you are such a valiant, brave fellow, come with me into our cavern and spend the night with us." Well, the little tailor was willing and followed him. When they went into the cave, other giants were sitting there by the fire, and each of them had a roasted sheep in his hand and was eating it. The little tailor looked around and thought, "It is much more spacious and roomy here than in my workshop." The giant showed him a bed and said he was to lie down in it and sleep. The bed, however, was too big for the little tailor. He did not lie down in it, but crept into a corner. When it was midnight, and the giant thought that the little tailor was lying in a sound sleep, he got up, took a great big iron bar, swung down hard, and cut through the bed with one blow, and thought he had finished off the little tailor for good. With the earliest dawn, the giants went into the forest and had quite forgotten the little tailor, when all at once he walked up to them quite merrily and boldly. The giants were terrified, afraid that he would strike them all dead, and they ran away in a great hurry. The little tailor went onwards, always following his pointed nose. After he had walked for a long time, he came to the courtyard of a royal palace, and as he felt weary, he lay down on the grass and fell asleep. Whilst he lay there, the people came and inspected him on all sides, and read his sash. 7 at one stroke. "Ah," said they, "what does the great warrior want here in the midst of peace? He must be a mighty lord." Well, they went and announced him to the king, and gave it as their opinion that if war should break out, this would be a weighty and useful man who ought on no account to be allowed to depart." The counsel and advice pleased the king, and he sent one of his courtiers, that is, one of his special helpers, to the little tailor to offer him military service as a soldier when he awoke. The ambassador remained standing by the sleeper, waited until he stretched his limbs and opened his eyes, and conveyed to him this proposal, that is, they told him the king's offer. "For this very reason have I come here," the tailor replied. "I am ready to enter the king's service." He was therefore honorably received, and a special dwelling for him to live in was assigned him. The soldiers, however, were set against the little tailor, and wished he were 1,000 miles away. "What is to be the end of this?" they said among themselves. "If we quarrel with him and he strikes about him, 7 of us will fall at every blow. No one of us can stand up against him." They came, therefore, to a decision, betook themselves in a body to the king, and begged for their dismissal, telling him they wanted to quit. "We are not prepared," said they, "to stay with a man who kills 7 at one stroke." The king was sorry that for the sake of one he should lose all his faithful servants, wished that he had never set eyes on the little tailor, and would willingly have been rid of him again. But the king did not venture or dare to give him his dismissal and tell the tailor to go away, for he dreaded lest the tailor should strike him and all his people dead and place himself on the royal throne. The king thought about it for a long time, and at last found good counsel and advice. He sent to the little tailor and caused him to be informed that as he was a great warrior, the king had one request to make of him. In a forest of his country lived 2 giants who caused great mischief with their robbing, murdering, ravaging, and burning, and no one could approach them without putting himself in danger of death. If the tailor conquered and killed these 2 giants, the king would give him his only daughter to have as a wife, and half of his kingdom as a dowry, that is, as a wedding present. And likewise 100 horsemen should go with the tailor to assist him. "That would indeed be a fine thing for a man like me," thought the little tailor. "One is not offered a beautiful princess and half a kingdom every day of one's life." "Oh, yes," he replied to the king, "I will soon subdue and defeat the giants, and do not require the help of 100 horsemen to do it. A man who can hit 7 with one blow has no need to be afraid of 2. The little tailor went forth, and the 100 horsemen followed him. When he came to the bushes and trees on the outskirts of the forest, he said to his followers, "Just stay, waiting here. I alone will finish off the giants." Then he bounded into the forest and looked about right and left. After a while he perceived both giants. They lay sleeping under a tree, and snored so loudly that the branches waved up and down. The little tailor, not idle or lazy, gathered 2 pocketfuls of stones, and with these he climbed up the tree. When he was halfway up, he slipped down by a branch until he sat just above the sleepers, and let one stone after another fall on the breast of one of the giants. For a long time the giant felt nothing, but at last he awoke, pushed his comrade, and said, "Why are you hitting me?" "You must be dreaming," said the other giant. "I'm not hitting you." They laid themselves down to sleep again, and then the tailor threw a stone down on the second giant. "What is the meaning of this?" cried the other giant. "Why are you pelting me with stones?" "I'm not pelting you," answered the first one, growling. They disputed about it for a time, but as they were weary, they let the matter rest, and their eyes closed once more. The little tailor began his game again, picked out the biggest stone, and threw it with all his might on the breast of the first giant. "This is too bad," cried he, and sprang up like a madman, and pushed his companion against the tree until it shook. The other paid him back in the same coin, and they got into such a rage that they tore up trees and fought and belabored each other for so long that at last they both fell down dead on the ground at the same time. Then the little tailor leapt down, "It's a lucky thing," said he, "that they did not tear up the tree in which I was sitting, or I should have had to sprint onto another like a squirrel. But we tailors are nimble and quick on our feet." He drew out his sword and gave each of them a couple of thrusts in the breast, and then went out to the 100 horsemen waiting at the edge of the forest and said, "The work is done. I have finished both of them off, but it was hard work. They tore up trees and defended themselves with them, but all that is useless and to no purpose when a man like myself comes who can kill 7 at one blow." "But are you not wounded?" asked the horseman. "You need not concern yourself about that," answered the tailor. "They have not bent one hair on my head." The horsemen would not believe him and rode into the forest. There they found the giants dead, and all around about lay the torn-up trees. When they returned to the palace, the little tailor demanded of the king the promised reward. The king, however, repented of his promise, that is, he wished he hadn't made it, and again wondered to himself how he could get rid of the hero. "Before you receive my daughter and half of my kingdom," the king said to him, "you must perform one more heroic deed. In the forest roams a unicorn which does great harm, and you must catch it first." "I fear one unicorn even less than 2 giants," said the tailor. 7 at one blow is my kind of business." He took up a rope and an axe with him, went forth into the forest, and again bade those who were sent with him to wait outside. He had not long to seek and search. The unicorn soon came towards him and rushed directly at the tailor as if it would gore him with its horn without more ado. "Take it easy," said the tailor. "It can be done as quickly as that." The tailor stood still and waited until the animal was quite close. Then the tailor sprang nimbly behind the tree. The unicorn ran against the tree with all its strength and stuck its horn so fast and tight in the trunk that it had not enough strength to draw it out again, and thus it was caught. "Now I have got the quarry I came for," said the tailor, and came out from behind the tree and put the rope round its neck. And then with his axe he hewed and chopped the horn out of the tree, and when all was ready, he led the beast away and took it to the king. Well, the king still would not give him the promised reward and made a 3rd demand. Before the wedding, the tailor was to catch a wild boar, that is, a big wild pig that made great havoc and trouble in the forest. And the king said the huntsmen should give the tailor their help. "Willingly," said the tailor, "that is child's play." He did not take the huntsman with him into the forest, and they were well pleased that he did not, for the wild boar had several times received them in such a manner that they had no desire to hunt him and no inclination to lie in wait for him. When the boar perceived the tailor, it ran toward him with foaming mouth and sharp, whetted tusks, and was about to throw him to the ground, but the hero fled and sprang through a window into an empty chapel which was near. Then in one bound he leapt through another window and was out again. Well, the boar ran after him, but the tailor ran outside and shut the door behind it. And then the raging beast, which was much too heavy and awkward to leap out of the window, was caught. The little tailor called the huntsmen thither to him, so that they might see the prisoner with their own eyes. The hero, however, went to the king, who was now, whether he liked it or not, obliged to keep his promise, and gave the tailor his daughter and the half of his kingdom. Had the king known that it was no warlike hero, but a little tailor who was standing before him, it would have gone to his heart and bothered him still more than it did. Well, the wedding was held with great magnificence, though with small joy for the king, and out of the tailor a noble lord was made. After some time, the young princess heard her husband say in his dreams at night, "Boy, sew me a doublet jacket, and patch the pantaloons, or else I will rap your ears with a yardstick." Then she discovered in what state of life the new lord had been born, and next morning complained of her wrongs to her father, and begged him to help her get rid of her husband, who was nothing else but a tailor. The king comforted her and said, "Leave your bedroom door open this night, and my servant shall stand outside, and when he has fallen asleep, they shall go in, bind him with ropes, and take him on board a ship which will carry them away into the wide world." The woman was satisfied with this. But the king's armor-bearer, whose job was to polish the king's sword and shield, heard it all, and was friendly with the young lord, and informed him of the whole plot. "I'll show them," said the little tailor. At night he went to bed with his wife at the usual time, and when she thought he had fallen asleep, she got up, opened the door, and lay down again. The little tailor, who was only pretending to be asleep, began to cry out in a clear voice, "Boy, sew me the doublet jacket and patch me the pantaloons, or I will rap your ears with a yardstick. I smote 7 at one blow. I killed 2 giants. I brought away 1 unicorn and caught a wild boar. And am I to fear those who are standing outside the room?" When these men heard the tailor speaking thus, they were overcome by a great fear and dread, and ran away as if the wild huntsmen were behind them. And none of them would venture or dare to try anything further against him. So the little tailor was a lord, and in a few years became the king, and so remained to the end of his life.